Welcome everyone to Cando's presentation of Mining Equals Opportunities for Indigenous Communities in the Northwest Territories. My name is Paul Macedo. I'm Communications Director with Cando. Cando is the Council for the Advancement of Native Development Officers. We're a national Indigenous organization committed to building capacity in individuals working on behalf of First Nations communities to create impact in local economic development. We've been doing that since 1991. Currently, we have about 450 EDO members. And we're happy to work in conjunction with Natural Resources Canada to present a series called Mining Equals Opportunity. And so this presentation is one of, I believe, 12. This is the 12th session that we've had for different regions in the country. The last one is going to be for Yukon, and that's scheduled for next week, a week from today on March 28th. Certainly welcome to join us for that. So this series is available on Cando's website, edo.ca. If you go to the top menu function, there's a menu header called EDO Tools. Click on that, and Mining Resources is about the third option from the top, or you can just copy paste the link that I provided in the chat. This presentation will have a few breaks, and in the middle of in those breaks, we'll take some questions. If you could use the chat function to ask your questions, we'll proceed with those questions first, and time permitting during those breaks, if it allows, we can then open up the microphones for some direct questions, but we will provide opportunity at the end of the session for some live questions as well. So with us today is Bob Stewart, who is a professional geoscientist. He's got tremendous background and experience. Bob grew up on the East Coast and got his training there, but also worked in British Columbia and in Ontario. So he's got a wealth of experience. Bob has been responsible for creating the sessions and resources and presentations for several sessions, including Nunavut, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Ontario. So we're very, very grateful that Bob could lend his expertise and capabilities for these sessions, including today for the Northwest Territories. Bob, the microphone is yours.
Thanks, Paul. And I'll just charge right in that with the acknowledgements, thanking Cando and NRCan for their support, and that acknowledging the Northwest Territories as the ancestral homeland of many peoples and communities that have had an adaptive relationship with the land and continue to have an adaptive relationship. This, I've been able to use excellent information from Indigenous, federal government, territorial government, industry, corporations, and others to tune this presentation that's for economic development officers. And we're all in this time together within a global environment, and the NWT has many unknown and undeveloped mineral resources that are needed for the global supply. So let's start by taking a look that the size of the Northwest Territories is can be divided into 5 different administrative regions that I've used today for just some discussion purposes. So from the north, the Beaufort, then the Satu, Decho, Clicquot, and South Slave. The overall distribution of people is shown by these squares. And of course, Yellowknife has the greatest number of people of the 45,000 residents across the territory that has 11 official languages. The population density closely follows Nunavut, being one of the most sparsely populated places on Earth. And through the modern treaties, the Indigenous communities have significant control of regional land use and the exploration and development of natural resources. So in broad brush, this is a two-part presentation, and you can use the raise hand function and type in questions that Paul will be having ready for us when we take breaks. And these breaks will be at the ends of subsections, and we'll first start looking at the economic overview and then the mining industry cycle. I've put together the references for this are in an Appendix A that will be posted shortly, and then additional resource material with links to useful sites specific to the Northwest Territories is going to be in Appendix B. So my role today is to start with the economic overview and recognize what the basis is for Indigenous opportunities, stressing that there is community control throughout the mining cycle, and that mining today is different than it was in the past, and I try to explain that in everyday language, finishing off with the opportunities. So this first part, we're going to start with how Indigenous participation has occurred through time, and the regulatory framework, and how continued devolution will offer even more community participation. And the second section is getting into the environmental and economic benefits of mining, and then a look at the developments across the territories. So when we start, we need to look at the mineral history, and that of course gets very geological. And so one thing to realize that the Earth has extra metal endowments because the core of another world was added to Earth's core, and so we have more metals, and the outside of that other world that lost its core spun off and became its moon. So that event happened when soon after Earth formed back 4.5 billion years ago. And things took a long time to cool down, and the ocean floor was where some of the metals first started to come up and be stored in the Earth's crust as base metal deposits, copper, zinc, and precious metal deposits like silver and gold. And so then there were also some early stage where mineral-laden waters were able to form deposits of things like lead, zinc, and uranium. So we've got a lava lamp going over on the side here, and that's just to illustrate that we've got to get those metals up from that core. And it takes some pretty unique events that geologists have come to realize over the last few years. And these mantle plumes lead to flood basalt events. And the copper mine basalts and the copper that you find in the copper mine and the muskox intrusion over in the Coronation Gulf of Nunavut, they extend also a younger version of them up onto Victoria Island, and nickel, copper, cobalt, and PGE, platinum group element deposits can occur hidden in these formations. And the native copper and firestone, a pyrite, were used by Indigenous peoples of the Northwest Territories. The pyrite would be pounded together to light chaga or gross that were on birch trees, and to get things to get a fire started. So the other main type of mineralizing event that's important are when just the water, there no magmas involved, but the acid waters encounter previous carbonate rocks and can form these large lead zinc mines, such as at Pine Point or in Howard's Pass on the Yukon border. Something else that is the most significant events were diamond pipes that have actually come up through the old crust, the old Precambrian crust, and in younger times at different times. And so here we see the different times in millions of years for the mine site areas, three of which are actively being mined now. We get down to the last main geological event, and that was we had for most of the last 100,000 years, the North American ice cap was over top of us, and here down at the bottom in that little inset, you see a K with a circle around it, and that's just east of Great Slave Lake, and that's the center of one of the ice centers that made up the continental ice cap. And so there was glacial flow off to the northwest, and that was important because it scraped some of the metals and diamonds and kimberlite material, and allowed people to prospect and trace back these to their source, which sometimes was underneath lakes. So, and of course, over in Alaska and parts of the western Yukon, around the Klondike, the ice caps were not, didn't cover it all, or were had much less impact. And that helped when we look at human migration. People's first started coming into the Americas about 25,000 years ago, and took a hard right and moved down the Cordillera, it about 12,000 years ago, I should say. 12,000 years ago, there was a movement into Northern Asia and Scandinavia, and those peoples learned how to live in that harsh environment, and then were able to move over to over the ice bridge, and they became the later peoples that populated Nunavut, and but some of them started coming in. So that there were different groups that came through, and the first families, the Tunit, came to the Arctic coast about 5,000 years ago, and quickly spread across from Alaska to Greenland. And they used bows and arrows and lived in portable hide tents, and wore warm tailored garments because they'd perfected that while living in Siberia. And they used ivory and stone to make tools, and they used the rocks to make their shelters. And the oldest facial carving was made out of ivory here on the right-hand side of the slide. The 2,750 years ago, during a period of cooler climate, another set of peoples called the Dorset again spread quickly east from Alaska. And their advantages were better tools for hunting sea mammals, and they lived in dug-in shelters with hide roofs, and typically near the coast. And they used from soapstone, they made kulik, which were soapstone oil lamps to burn the sea mammals' blubber and fat in for heat and light. And there is evidence of long distance trade in copper and iron. And some of this trade in iron goes back to Siberia. So it wasn't just a one-way migration. And about 1,500 years ago, the Dorset started to spread further south, but mainly they were more isolated from the peoples of the northern forests and the Thule and Inuit west of the Mackenzie River. But climate changed again about 1,000 years ago, and we see that the artifacts disappeared, and early Inuit peoples started coming in. They were able to follow the bowhead whales that had moved into the east, or were now moved into the eastern Arctic, and they had better transportation with dog sleds, umiaks, and kayaks. And just like the predecessors, they used natural iron and copper and traded it whenever it was found. And the northern part of Victoria Island is part of the Northwest Territories, and that it's around Prince Albert Sound that there are copper occurrences in the Northwest Territory that were used by the copper Inuit in their trade. The Athabascan tradition period also includes trade with the Victoria Island Inuit, as well as sourcing it from the Cordillera in Alaska and Southwest Yukon. So 1980 or 1898 was a pivotal year in the world. Up in the Northwest, the Klondike Gold Rush had started a few years ago, and people were flooding in after that 1896 discovery. Over in France, Madame Curie and her husband were working, and she isolated the element radium. And they were excited because radium could be used for the treatment of cancer. And so that looking for sources of radium became very important. And so that the lead zinc showing south of Great Slave Lake in what is now, or what was developed as the Pine Point, were known to local First Nations. And they actually were using the smelting the lead and making musket balls instead of having to pay for them from the Hudson Bay outpost. And back in 1920, the Geological Survey geologists noticed these smelting sites. And when they asked the fur trader Ed Nagel learned about these, and he was the first to stake where these galena occurrences were. And that's some of the first staking that happened, all spurred on by the gold fever that had been sparked by the Klondike Gold Rush. And so the history of mining is that you come, you get disappointed, and you go. Very few deposits actually are carried through from discovery to development by the same people. But Pine Point only became possible through the federal government infrastructure commitments in 1962 and to 1964, which was building a railway. So we know that some of that native copper that was being sourced from Victoria Island, Coronation Gulf, and Alaska, Yukon, was made into knives. And the yellow knives were the Dene people that, and of course the name of the capital comes from the yellow knives. So it was also in 1898 that a Klondike-bound prospector found the gold in the Yellowknife Bay area. Everything was too remote for anything to actually happen, but pitchblende prospecting resulted in the first mines in present-day Northwest Territories in the early 30s, before Yellowknife Gold. And these were the up on Great Bear Lake, and that the ores from that were processed for the Manhattan Project. So early geologists that came up and were looking at the mineral resources found the rich history of the peoples that were living there, and the Canada Department of Mines, the Geological Survey, had ethnologists back in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s that were sent out and lived with peoples, and they wrote up reports, and that's where we can learn about some of the earliest recorded history of the peoples, and they shared where their trade routes were, and the left-hand diagram here shows how trade routes started in the west near the Yukon and spread northeastward using lakes and overland trails for the trade. And we know that both ends of this is where the copper is found at Coronation Gulf, and wood would go back up the trail to the Coronation Gulf, and so the one on the right-hand side shows some of the trade routes that from a map from 1914 that shows the mainly east-west trade with some north-south trade. This was the trading infrastructure at the time. So when we look at historic mining, there's a historical Canadian mines website that is worked out of maintained out of the University of Saskatchewan, and here we see up to the north the El Dorado mine, where the first mines from the early 1930s occurred, and then down where it says gold, the Yellowknife district. Over in the mountains to the west is tungsten belt, and over to the east is a diamonds belt, and the Pine Point lead zinc is down to the south. When we look at the total number of actual mines different people have different definition of a mine and how it gets recorded. And sometimes mines are developed by two different companies and called two different mines, but they merge. But the order of magnitude is that there's about 100 mines have been developed in the Northwest Territories, and that amounts to only 0.2% of the total mines in Canada, even though the Northwest Territories represents 13.5% of the country's area. So let's break it down into again, what the regional geology is. It can be simplified down. The Slave province that you see in a sort of a rusty red is of course where the gold and diamonds are mainly found, and the diamonds have come in 2 billion years after, more than 2 billion years after those first rocks solidified. But other rocks were sedimentary rocks, mainly were added to that nucleus, that Precambrian nucleus, and different geological process then led to the uranium and radium deposits that were near Great Bear Lake, and then the lead zinc deposits down to the south in the interior platform. And then as the mountains were formed by multiple collisions from the west. So when we take a look at the relative mine production years, so if a mine works for a year, that's one production year, and 37 gold mines operated for a total of 290 mine years. And this gives us an idea of how things got started. The uranium was, of course, very active in the early years, 30s and 40s, and they accumulated the second greatest amount of mine years. But diamonds, which have only been developed in recent decades, are soon going to overtake in the next decade with more mines. They'll have overtaken what the uranium production is. And it tails off with tungsten, lead, zinc, lithium being the new important critical mineral could well increase, and nickel, cobalt as well. So when we look at those 100-odd mines by region, none of them are in the Beaufort administrative region. The Satu region had the uranium deposits and one tungsten deposits. We move down further to the southwest. There's the Cordillera hosted tungsten, lead, zinc mines, but the main mining area is that around Yellowknife and the old slave Creighton, where there were 85 gold mines, or 85 mines, 63 were gold. There's 7 lithium rare earth element, 5 uranium, 4 tungsten, 4 diamonds, and 1 cobalt, nickel, copper. And then in the South Slave, there's 2 tungsten, 2 lead, zinc, and nickel cobalt mines. So here what we're looking at is looking at the 100-odd historical mine sites, and that 65 of the 100 were gold, 18 uranium, But now there has already been lithium rare earth mining that accounts in 7 occurrences. And the other critical mineral on the Canada's mineral lists are the nickel cobalt, which are found at 3 historic mines. But today, there's the Diavik, Ekati, and Gahcho Kué mines that are operated, and there's also a pre-production mine that's important for the Nechalacho mine. Has been a open pit resource that's owned by Vital Minerals, and a wholly owned subsidiary, Cheetah Resources, is been mining it. And Cheetah Resources has had up to 80% of their workforce has been Indigenous. It's a capacity building project in that initial open pit. And they've Vital Metals, an Australian company, has had some bumps in the road recently. Another subsidiary had to seek bankruptcy protection in October last year because of their rare earth processing facility was half built but over budget. And recently they've sold the stockpile to a minority shareholder. So there are two key factors for maintaining mining investments of billions of dollars, and the large underdeveloped world-class mineral deposits that are there, but also equally important is a region that has a maturing regulatory framework that represents a balance between sustainability and prosperity. And past government ministers have referred to this as the Northwest Territories advantage. So let's take a look at what this regulatory framework is quite quickly. It's breaks down into about 7 different aspects, starting with financing. And everyone has to realize that financing is very liquid. The investment capital is controlled by shareholders and the regulators. The proponents are responsible for professionally managed projects, and these projects, due to the location, are often challenged by seasonality, timelines, and deadlines. And low political risk is earned by timely and fair regulatory decisions. And so the Northwest Territories has a foundation for that, in that when it comes to integrated management and land use plans, they're laid out well for most areas. There's clear mineral opportunity that Northwest Territories Geoscience has many excellent materials. The law is clear. It was updated in 2019, and they're still evolving. The regulations for that are still evolving, and that will only increase the clarity. So what we need are clear regulator expectations and clear environmental review, which are all set out in acts and regulations, and timely permitting. The second thing that we need is a social license. And so that working with the communities is important. About the community makeup changes and who is involved with are relevant to a project can evolve as well. And so that making sure people are, you're out there talking to people about whatever stage your project is in. And when we look at a map of Indigenous mining agreements that's maintained by NRCan, the most recent updates I've seen are to about 2020, towards the start of COVID. And Canada-wide, there's 434 Indigenous mining agreements. And in the Northwest Territory, there's about 12 active projects with 37 agreements, 17 signatories involving 10 companies. And so De Beers, Burgundy, Rio Tinto, they have 19 of the agreements, and Vital Metals with their rare earth are next, and Osisko, Fortune Metals, Norzinc, and Mountain Province Diamonds are also in that list, have agreements. And there's probably more agreements there that I haven't completely dug up with. When we look at the Northwest Territory Geoscience puts out an annual overview, and the latest issue came out in March 2024, and it discussed.
Sorry, I'm
Say again? Okay, so anyways, the exploration projects are laid out by the 5 administrative regions, and these exploration projects are again concentrated in the North Slave region. And so unlocking our potential is expressing the territorial vision. The mineral title is clear to it's still evolving, but one major difference is that this Mineral Resources Act was made in the Northwest Territories by all communities, and so it still involves ground staking, and when you record your mineral claim, the communities are consulted for 30 days for comment, and then the claims may be issued. And so that when we look at the February version of the map, all the brown areas are areas that are in land withdrawal or protected areas, and the brightly colored squares or rectangles are state claims that are represent only 1.2% of the total area of the territory, and most of these are in the area around the diamond mines that is those large blue blocks to the east of near the Nunavut border. So when we look at how those projects break down, there were the 3 diamond mines also are involved in exploration. There's 7 gold exploration projects, base metal projects, diamonds. The 22 lithium exploration projects was a big jump from 12 the previous year, and so a total of 46 projects, mainly due to the lithium, whereas the previous year, 2022, there were 36 exploration projects. So when we look at claim staking, the over the life of a claim before it gets where to the mining stage, the expenditure required is about $40,000 a year, and the field work requires permits to be in place, and you need to have someone who leads it, who is typically a geoscientist or an engineer that has to be registered with the territorial regulator. So when we get down to getting the work done on the ground, it's best to be done by people that are more local. And the Chamber of Mines has a website that has links to all the contractors that they know. And the website also includes the common roles for exploration projects, and then the quite a bit more diverse 173 common roles for mine site projects. So logistical support services are very well suited because of how far how northern the projects are and how remote they are from the few centers that are able to be serviced by roads. So typically work is fly in, fly out, and but unlike previously, water, waste management, and all other activity permits need to be are required in advance, well in advance, and so that there is a plan to go to online staking, but that's probably about 10 years out, and there will be provisions to made to make sure that speculative staking that is common elsewhere doesn't occur, and that people are actually staking claims and are going to come to look for resources. So reclamation is seasonal, but it's also something that local contractors can continue on after the other people have left the site. So project professionals have to report to their corporate officers, shareholders, and stakeholders. And the stakeholders include the communities as part of the ongoing consultations. They have to have frequent application and permit requests, as well as follow up with the regulators and the environmental regulators. And all of the scientific work has to be written up in reports to satisfy the mineral title regulators, and before anything can move to major financing, the securities regulators have to be satisfied. So all of this repeats then annually. So it's a very busy industry, and when we wrap this section up, territorial control of the resources requires informed choices, and this is very much a result of the modern day treaties, and so that community participation is essential, both in the elected governments, public service regulator boards, Indigenous owned companies, and within projects. So one of the nice things compared to other Canadian regions are that regional economic development plans have been drawn up for 5 out of the 6 areas. And so that this deciding what you would like to have happen in your community makes it easier for the people that would like to invest in your community. And so that we do see some government programs are available for building capacity, and I think these will only increase in the coming years. And these capacity building should result in prosperity. So there's a nice graphic in the March edition of the Geoscience Northwest Territories and Unlocking Our Potentials Mineral Resource Act roadmap. Or sorry, it's from the January newsletter issue. And so here along this road, we're going from the left to the right, and there's there are in yellow where there's things that involve Indigenous awareness, and that starts right at the very start in your Prospectors Awareness course. And as you move along, there's the Indigenous participation in making decisions as to leases, and as you move forward, there's also socio-economic agreements, and then towards the selling of the minerals happens well along the road, and there's that circular loop where there's all this annual reporting that goes on. And so in summary, the Northwest Territories natural resources have been used for millennia, and they have been traded for millennia. And that Indigenous authority is now greater with the modern treaties and agreements, meaning that there's greater responsibility for how the land is used. The regulations and regulators have changed in recent years about how the mineral industry operates, but there's still the Northwest Territory advantage that the regulatory system is well advanced and modern, and that is matched to good geological potential. So opportunities will continue to be identified. Not everything's been found. The Made in Northwest Territory regulatory system is going to be continually refined to look for prosperity, and that regulatory roadmap is how prosperity will result. So this is our first break, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I have to click on the microphone there. Yeah, there were no questions, but there were a couple of comments. Tom mentioned that says, I can't help but be reminded that mining is not a walk in the park. It's complex and challenging for many reasons, as you have identified. If there are any other questions that you'd like to turn on your microphone and ask Bob at this point, please do so, or raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you. Otherwise, we'll just carry on.
Okay.
Okay, so carry on, Bob.
So into the next section where we look at some of the economic and environmental benefits. We have to look at Canada as a whole. So that in Canada, mining employs about 2/3 of a million people. There's 106,000 that are in mining, near mining, but then there's 3 times that much in the mineral processing down the road, in corporate offices in Toronto and Vancouver. And so that people like me work, I'm out in Halifax, but I worked across the country and internationally. We're quite mobile. We get plugged in, find a deposit, and then as soon as the deposit's found, it moves on to other people. Mining is the greatest employer outside of the government, of any sector, and that's a growing, the number of Indigenous people are growing, and that's through industry efforts to have as many people involved that want to be involved, and so that when we look at our overall Canadian economy, the minerals represent 22% of merchandise exports, and for the heavier minerals, things like base metals and iron, and coal, they represent 53% of the tonnage that moves on trains in Canada. And so that's why putting the rail line up to Pine Point was so important back in the early 60s to get those heavy final products out. So 5% of our gross domestic product in 2021 came from the mining sector. And when we look at mining, it's part of the primary resource sector in the Canadian economy. And the primary resource sector accounts for 13%. Secondary manufacturing, making stuff out of the material that came from the primary sector. And then we have the tertiary sector, which is government and everybody else that are providing services to getting things done. And when we look at this graphic here, that colored line showing mining as 15% of the primary resource sector, the 48% of that's fossil fuels, of course, with our changing goals and moving to a different economy, energy economy, we're going to see that 48% shrink, and so that mining is going to expand and can assist in that energy transformation. And so that so mining is important for the energy transformation, and northern employment at the mines in the Northwest Territories is 46%, compared to Nunavut, where it's only 20%. So today's mining industry is safer and better paid and better regulated than it was 30 years ago. I started in the business 50 years ago, so I've been a witness to how well it's changed over the years. And one of the big changes is that it's an evolving and highly regulated professional subculture whose primary duty is to the protection of the public and the environment. So where to find out about recent activities in the Northwest Territories is this publication that came out from the Geological Survey of the Northwest Territories. And this came out in March for the annual Prospectors Convention held in Toronto. And what's important about this is that it also comes with a good map that can show where the activities, both exploration and mining activities, are spread across the Northwest Territories. And so that just echoes what I was saying earlier about the geological potential, that it's not all concentrated in a few places. So here's the first people that you should talk to are those in the geological survey in Yellowknife, and attending any information events that are being held in the communities that might be sponsored by companies, regulators, politicians, and just keeping an eye on the social media and as well as the more traditional media, and always using your discretion as you read through things. In November this year, there'll be the Yellowknife Geoscience Forum that is going to give you your first rundown on and summary of what's happened in the very active 6-month field season, and then that's followed up as more results trickle in. The January Vancouver AME roundup and the Toronto meeting in March. Some of the events that or news that are important to follow are across the line into Nunavut. They're still looking at the Grays Bay Road and Port project, and this is critical. It can have critical benefits for the Northwest Territories, because at times there's been included in this is a all-weather extension to Yellowknife. The deposits near the boundary of the Northwest Territories, Hood and Gondor and Izok Lake are huge VMS deposits, base metal deposits with that will require land transport for the final product, the heavy final product. And there's all these mines that are headed towards development, and one of the things that when it comes to doing exploration, it's always good to have a head frame visible from your exploration project, because it proves that there was the potential in the area to have a mine, and so Yellowknife, Great Bear Lake, the Yukon border region, as well as all the diamond mine sites are important. And Yukon also has people that are looking at what the alternative is, what if we didn't have mining in the Northwest Territories? And so this is a balanced report that has been written, and I know that Graham Clinton has talked about this for several years, and he's updated this to 2024 this year, and so that the emphasis is that now that community involvement is much more a component in making decisions, that those decisions should be well informed, and that the geoscientists, engineers, biologists, regulators, and investors know that they can't do it all alone. They have to have the community support. So when we look at the 3 diamond mines in 2022, they represented 14% of the territory's gross domestic product, and mining was 73% of the territory's natural resource industry's production. And so we have, I've pointed out that there are many projects that are and infrastructure projects that could go forward through the financing and permitting stage. So it's to summarize before our next break that mining is essential to an essential part of the Canadian economy, and that from an environmental point of view, with the global transition in energy, mining is even going to be more important. And so that the Northwest Territories is blessed with the mineral endowment, and so that its wise use can grow the economy significantly. The doors are open for consultation and making sure that people know as much as they want to know about their role and how things can go forward. But the bottom line is that all projects are endangered without continued support from Northerners. So, Paul?
Thanks, Bob. Take another moment to rest your voice. I just wanted to remind everyone that the recording of this session, plus Bob's presentation, will be uploaded later today on the Cando website, edo.ca. I put the direct link into the chat function. In addition to those resources, there will also be a comprehensive list of tools, links, and resources that Bob will be sharing. That won't happen today, but will happen probably in the next week or two. I do have a list of all the everyone that was registered for this course, so I'll send out an email to you when that comprehensive list is available on the website. So we'll take all the links to some of the research information that Bob has accessed, plus links to territorial government resources and so on, and we'll put that all together on the Cando website for you. So if you think you've missed something, or you want to check a particular slide or some additional information in detail, don't worry about it. You'll be able to access all of that either later today or comprehensively in a week or two when all the resources are listed. So if there are no questions at the moment, then we'll just let Bob carry through. Thank you so much.
Okay, and so thanks very much. And so here we'll take a look at what the subsurface tenure looks like. And as I said, only 1.2% is of the Northwest Territories are held under mineral claims and leases, but considerable areas under the modern treaties have been set aside as being Indigenous owned. And the darker cross-hatching is areas where the Indigenous ownership includes the mineral rights, where in addition to surface rights, whereas the lighter cross-hatched areas are surface rights ownership, just like we're familiar with in the South. And so that the mineral claims, projects that are in purple are more advanced and more likely to become mineral deposits or developed resources sooner. So when we take a look at what the actual production was at the three mine sites last year, I sourced this from company reports, and it shows that about 14 million carats of diamonds were actually mined, and that all the companies working in exploration in 2023, there were 39 companies working on 46 projects, and they spent almost $120 million or invested $120 million in mineral exploration, of which 60% of those expenditures were in the specialty metals, the lithium, rare earths, and tungsten. And even though all the production came from diamonds, only 7% of the exploration was spent on diamonds. But they, of course, have more advanced targets, and whereas the lithium and specialty metals space is more early stage development. And so that earlier this month, the number of claims and leases in the territory were held by 106 owners. And when we look at the 106 owners, the top 25 based on surface area, were tended to be companies, and overwhelmingly companies, and that those top 25 owners held 87% of the staked areas. But there's still room for the little guy. There's 37 individuals, prospectors, held a cumulative amount of 1%. And so that's one of the important things about this industry is that an individual motivated to get out and prospect and can still take part in the industry and reap rewards with success. So trying to take a look at how to get some of these specialty things, the terminology that gets thrown around, try to put it into a perspective that we can understand. And a few months ago, I did the talk on Ontario, which had the old Sky Dome or Rogers Centre and adjacent CN Tower provide distance and volumetric measurements. And so when the Rogers Centre is closed, if you filled it, it can hold 1.6 million cubic meters. And the other thing that we often talk about are how many grams per ton in a high-grade deposit would be 6 grams per ton. And that could be 6 grams of gold in a ton of rock. When we look at the area of a hockey puck sitting on an NHL hockey rink is 3 parts per million. If you had 6 dimes on a hockey rink, that's the equivalent coverage of 1 part per million. And the diamond concentration, 1 carat per ton, is only 0.2 parts per million. And that would be the equivalent of a penny on a hockey rink. So when we think of these large volumes, but these very low grades, you get an understanding that the miners are really winning. They have to have very good processing to be able to recover the pay metal. So we've gone over that exploration went up to almost $120 million last year from 107 the previous year, which is a good sign for the territory. And that the last year, when there is aggregate production, but it's not as easily accessible. It tends to be for local use. so I don't have the economics on it. But when we get over to those specialty metals like lithium rare earths and tungsten, we did see the rare earth element stockpile sold late last year and getting shipped out in early 2024. And so that 220 or $2.25 million is the only revenue that was generated from mining that goes back to 2021, outside of the 14 million carats of diamonds that were produced. So 99.9% of the mineral production came from diamonds, and 16% of the exploration was for base metals. And the pending mines, though, are at Pine Creek and Prairie Creek, and in the specialty metals, there's 3 mines that are on the horizon. So going back to that, how much area or how much volume does 14 million carats make up? And if they're all tightly packed, that's 0.8 cubic meters. And they're the diamond ore, the kimberlite, the diamondiferous kimberlite is separated from the other rocks, and the 0.8 cubic meters of diamonds were won from 2.6 Rogers centers of ore. That's essentially 10 million tons of ore from the 3 different mine sites. To get at that, the development work required removing 18 Rogers centers. And those 18 Rogers centers that we would used to call waste was reused as aggregate on the mine sites and building to new sites. So another way of looking at this is that raw diamonds, a kilogram of raw diamonds is about $500,000. And that's about the size of a normal softball. And when we look at the precious metals, and these are based on numbers that before the price of gold spiked recently, about 2/3 of a hockey puck would be about $67,000, and that's what a kilogram of gold would be, the same size as 2/3 of a hockey puck. And so when we look at the more valuable base metals like nickel and copper and cobalt, they sort of average out to about $20 a kilogram, and a kilogram of those valuable base metals is about the size of a hockey. Lead and zinc are worth a whole lot less. And you get down into the industrial minerals, and you're talking about cents per kilogram. So the annual volume of from the NWT mines was just over almost 21 Rogers centers, and 0.8 cubic meters is the size of a regular household washer and dryer. So why is mining an opportunity in the Northwest Territories? Is that the minerals are shared by the public under clear agreements, modern treaties with Indigenous owned land, and clear provisions for sharing and resource development on traditional lands is an underdeveloped opportunity. Regulatory systems are for the well-being of Northerners and the environment. Mining is already the largest single component in the Northwest Territories GDP, but its similar geology to Nunavut and the impact that mining has on Nunavut's GDP, where it's 38%, is an indication that the Northwest Territories mining could triple its contribution to territorial GDP. And so that the low population density and frontier stage mineral opportunities allow projects to create planned legacy infrastructure at no cost to the public, which can then generate more opportunities for future generations. And so it's not just planning for the mine, it's planning for the planning infrastructure for more development after. And this all is the NWT advantage. So remember at this time that only 1.2% of the territories is covered under mineral claims. And that the byproduct of diamond mining is not waste. It's being sustainably used to create infrastructure to the new mines, and that mine site footprints are small. And I'll be showing an example of that shortly. And so that exploration continues to find new diamond resources on and off the mine sites because they've developed a level of knowledge as to plan, and the cost of capital means that you don't find things for 40 years into the future. You only try to replace what you're mining, and with perhaps a little bit more. So there's a long future in the diamond mines. That when they say that mines are predicted to close in 10 years, that doesn't mean that other mines are not going to be developed. And we see the diamond mining companies continuing to do the prep for the next generation of mines. So the exploration continues on projects, and that can lead to the major resources. And that we've seen that how little the final product is in size from the mining from all three of the existing diamond mine sites. And so that skilled professionals are needed to be able to win those diamonds, and it's not easy. And so the Northwest Territories has proved that it has the skilled northerners now. Those northerners are already a high percentage of the mining workforce working in the territory, and that the existing industry and others can help train and attract even more for the rapid growth. So, any questions?
Yes, there's a question from Karen.
Okay.
So are you saying that the projects need to create the legacy infrastructure?
I'm saying that that's all part of the planning process, that the community can decide if that type of legacy infrastructure is something that should be part of the permitting process, and so that there's different viewpoints on this. In the past, there were company town sites. We went away from having company town sites, but that because of the plus and minuses. And so that having a focus on what the community wants for infrastructure is something that they can see that advantage. And so that if a mine site needs to have a residential community and not be a fly in, fly out, or a drive in, drive out type of shift work, then yes, it needs to it's going to need to look at that building of infrastructure. So it's not black and white, but it's something that in the overall community planning, the infrastructure should be what legacy infrastructure is there. The idea that infrastructure should always be torn down and reclaimed doesn't make a whole lot of sense to a geologist who knows that if you find one type of ore deposit in an area, there's a higher likelihood of finding another ore deposit in that same area. And so that while reclamation is important, it should be wise reclamation. So hope that answers it very clearly and muddy.
Thanks, Bob. There's no other questions, so carry on.
Okay.
Please.
So let's look at the mining cycle, and I've added key turning points that are required for the entire mining cycle. These key turning points are some of those yellow signs back on the Mineral Resource Act diagram infographic that we saw earlier. And so that doing your research and developing your intellectual property is requires it requires confidentiality. It's the only protection for intellectual property. And so that the discussions sometimes will seem that the proponent is holding something back. And if you can understand that what they're holding back is perhaps that intangible intellectual property is makes it seem that it's the reason they will be holding back. And so that early consultation before acquiring any subsurface mineral rights is something that the industry is just not used to. And it seems to be that getting consultation and of course land use permission is needed in the Northwest Territories prior to staking because it's not a map staking type region. Other regions that have gone to map staking have run into difficulty because the consultation in map staking terrains typically only starts after the claims have been staked. So having meaningful consultation at an early stage is a key turning point because you're going to need to continue that consultation through the entire process. So because the Northwest Territories Mineral Resources Act was made by Northerners, I believe it's unique in Canada where a 30-day consultation period is required before the claims may be issued. And so getting your mineral tenure is the project's second key turning point. And we looked at the area, the maximum area of physical claim in the Northwest Territories is 12.5 kilometers. And so that having the claims, the intellectual property is then what the company people use to make sure that they get adequate financing and moving it to the next stage. And the next stage for a prospector could be that he has a few good rock samples with assays that he takes down to one of the trade shows in Yellowknife or Vancouver or Toronto, and he's able to option the property off, and a company then picks up the exploration. So that's that self-financing, and we saw how about a third of the licensed prospectors in the Northwest Territories have only 1% of the claims. They have their licenses in their own name, and so some of the claim groups are only as small as one claim, one partial claim, and so that getting the project up off the ground is the third turning point. And so that at the early exploration stage, the goal is to get an indication of a mineral deposit discovery. And up in the Northwest Territories, there would be a high expectation that you're starting with something that's already sticking out of the ground that shows reasonable promise, and that at this stage, where it's mainly just people walking on the surface or flying over it with aircraft, the impacts are minimal. And so that it's not just aircraft that we're doing or working with now. A month ago, NASA launched the PACE satellite, which has gone into a polar orbit, which means it is going to be having eyes on the northernmost territories that other satellites commonly only got up to about 60 degrees latitude before they headed south again. And so that we've got good overhead shots using a instrument that can see in the full visible spectrum as well as the near infrared spectrum. And this is hyperspectral capability at 1 kilometer spatial resolution. And we know that airborne hyperspectral systems can map to less than 5 meter resolution. 20 years ago, I was doing this for a company, and we even flew in the northern Nunavut. And the historical data archives that is collected by this allows for progressive environmental monitoring, but already we see in the company websites that companies are using satellite data to identify potential lithium staking targets. So they don't even have to have been on the ground or using existing resources. They can see it from space. And so the next level of geophysical survey tends to be either on a fixed wing aircraft or helicopters. And here you have passive surveys like hyperspectral, looking at the light, or magnetic and gravity surveys that are just picking up what the Earth is radiating in those energy fields. And there's other types of surveys that are active, where um, LiDAR surveys and EM surveys send out a signal that bounces off the ground and underground targets and provide targets. So rock saws can channel sample mineralized outcrop, and we can use the glacially transported material to find trace back to mineralization. And nothing beats a prospector getting out and taking samples from rock to send in for assay. And the target definition for quite often requires getting out with ground geophysical survey equipment. And that's done at this time of year on the lakes, because the soft materials that make up ore deposits quite often ended up becoming scooped out, and lakes are filling them. And so that since it's so costly, the time it takes to optimize your drill target is well spent to get your initial few holes done. And so geologists tend to be involved in more than engineers at this stage of the process. And we take a good hard look at the rocks, noting the features and talking with the geophysicists and blending all that information together. And so a maiden drill hole discovery is one that encounters a region's typical ore grade mineralization over mineable widths. And drilling continues to build this into a resource. And so around the world in the last 50 years, we've seen a great decrease in the number of discoveries per year. However, the Northwest Territories is one of the last places on Earth where the exploration potential is still at the very early days or frontier stage. So a mineral deposit resource is a project's fourth key turning point. And NWT projects can get to that faster than most other places in the world. So we're looking at this advanced exploration projects. You bring in multiple drill rigs. You make sure your environmental baselines studies are robust, and that are going to be able to meet the hurdles that are coming up for moving things on to the next stage. And so that after you've gathered enough information and done things like pre-feasibility studies and feasibility studies, you come to the fifth key turning point where it looks like development is going to be economically viable. And so this is the end of the exploration stage and start of the next stages, which involves getting a mine lease, doing more environmental surveys, quite often doing a bulk sample that helps justify the mine, the feasibility, and all of the estimations to make sure that they are all in line. So it's only the production stage that's revenue generating. And so that, as I pointed out, the Northwest Territories can go from having 3 active producing diamond mine sites to having 6 more added, and that are quite advanced stages. So but we have to remember too that adverse effects and economic conditions can make a mining operation not profitable. So this is, here we have the CN Tower has photobombed us looking at the Tuzo pipe, kimberlite pipe from one of the diamond mines, and just comparing what its size is. And that at surface, it had a very small footprint. So given the huge area of the territories, finding these types of deposits, and whether it's a diamond deposit or a gold deposit or base metal deposit, you quite often have the depth dimension is the largest dimension for the deposit. And so closure is a 6 key turning point, and it should not be taken lightly. And so projects like the rare earth deposit, yeah, they have got difficult economic conditions now, but it should be able to come back on track. And so that companies working with the communities and government can refine the see what they can do to work together to get through those difficult times. And so at the end of the day, we want to return the land to as much as possible to what the community wants, and so that before that last reclamation is done, the community still has can still be consulted as to how they would like the land to be repurposed, and if it's not for mining, for what are the uses. And so that the way it is now, historical mine sites remain a public concern because they didn't have the closure, reclamation, and repurposing plans. So we're almost done, and here's take a quick look at Diavik over 25 years. And this is the satellite view from 1997. Pre-development exploration has been done, and here we see the first the airstrip being developed, and the first development. Because the diamonds pipes were out under Lac de Gras, a coffer needed to be built, that white loop, and here we see that's in 2002. 4 years later, it's now open pit, and other mines, mine sites on the, or other open pits on the mine site are being developed, and so we see how tight a footprint it is. The surrounding area is still not changed. However, on the actual mine site, there has been the considerable development. And by 2016, things are moving ahead. Roads are being developed out to new resources. These two images are taken a day apart. One's a high resolution image, and that PACE satellite is also adding. We've got more technology that's going up into space that makes it easier to reliably prospect on the ground before we even get on the ground. So the life cycle of mining all revolves around Indigenous business opportunities. It starts at the exploration stage and goes right through to reclamation. There's all kinds of different types of jobs, and the Mining Northworks website, which is the Chamber of Mines website goes into those. We live in a world that our resources needed to operate in a global economy. We need to supply them, and some of these metals, like rare earths, are controlled by foreign countries, and we have undeveloped resources here. So that's why the rare earths are part of the critical minerals strategy that Canada has. And the battery metals are also critical minerals because they're part of the energy transformation. So it's important, and there is capacity building programs, one of which has been announced of almost $2 million for the LKFN to build capacity for the upcoming Prairie Creek mine in western Northwest Territories. And for those that are interested in getting out and becoming a prospector, it's quite easy to do, and you can even you can't get paid to prospect, but you can have your costs covered. And so for junior mining companies, their budget can be supplemented with up to $240,000, and prospectors, once they've demonstrated their capability, can get up to $25,000 of exploration costs covered. So summarizing, the economic development officers can recognize the opportunity of mining through awareness of the overall NWT mining industry, the community capacity and resources that is available, and taking part in community consultations and being part of the decision making. And so that aggregate potential is important for safe water drinking, building safe water systems in communities, and there's so much unstaked mineral potential, as well as the mineral potential that comes with the subsurface lands through the modern treaties. So look at the local projects' key turning points, and getting started is the first step is has been laid out as looking at that mineral tenure, and know that industry professionals are always willing to engage with Indigenous partners, businesses, and individuals in exploring and developing. So this brings us to our final break.
Thanks, Bob. If there's anyone that has a question, please just turn on your microphone and ask away. Okay, there's a couple of comments from Tom. First is Diavik has a footprint of a little under 15 square kilometers, from which it will have produced about 15 billion in diamond value. And when they are done, the land will be reclaimed and returned to government. That might be the highest value of land in the country. Can't really argue with that.
That's right.
And then he also said, Tom also says, Bob has done a remarkably fulsome job here of explaining mineral development in the NWT. Thank you very much for a job well done. I certainly echo those comments. It's really comprehensive, as you can tell. There's a lot of information here, and that's why we've committed to taking this material and making it available after the session is over, with the recording and with the slideshow presentation. So if you think you've missed something, you can always go back to our website, edo.ca, go to the EDO tools on the menu, drop down to mining resources, and wham, bam, there it is all for you. You can download the presentation and refer to it, as well as review the recordings in time. And as I mentioned before, the comprehensive list of resources that Bob has prepared will be available for everyone probably in the next week or two, but it'll be posted onto edo.ca, and I will send out an email to everyone that registered for the session to remind them that it's there, so you won't lose track of it. So if there are no more questions, we're going to end the presentation here with a hearty thank you to Bob for all the work that you've done in putting this together and sharing it with everyone on this session, but everyone also that's going to be checking out the recording in time. So thank you so much, Bob. I want to thank everyone that participated and took the time out of their day to attend. We appreciate you choosing to spend some time with us today. So thank you so much and have a good rest of your day. Take care, Bob. Rest your voice. A week from today will be the final of the sessions with a comprehensive review of mining equals opportunities in Yukon. So hope to see some of you back for that. Thank you all very much. Take care.